Economics, Karnataka State Akkamadi Women's University, Vijaypura. At the outset, I extend a warm welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Namdev Gauraji for presiding over this symposium and for encouraging us to do this national symposium. Welcome you, sir. I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to today's symposium chief guests and resource persons, Professor P.S. Kamble Sarji, Professor, Department of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, for accepting our invitation and today's for presence here to deliver a special lecture on new pharma act, its implications. Welcome you, sir. I also welcome another resource person and chief guest of this symposium, Professor Kailash Tavreji, Professor, Department of Economics, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune, Maharashtra, for accepting invitation and being with us to deliver a special lecture on New Pharma Act 2020. I welcome you, sir. I also welcome our university authorities, Professor R. Sunandamma, Registrar, Karnataka State Akkamadi Women's University, Vijaypura, for her moral support and administrative support to organize this webinar. On behalf of department and you all, I welcome you, madam. I also welcome our university authorities, Professor P.G. Tarsas, Registry Evaluation, and Professor Vijaya Kori Shetty, madam, Finance Officer, for extending their cooperation in organizing this mega event of the department. Welcome you, sir and madam. I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to our university, various departments, chairpersons, deans, and faculty members for online involvement and participating in this symposium. I extend a warm welcome to distinguished invitees, participants, research scholars of various departments for involvement, their active involvement and participating in this webinar online. I extend a warm welcome to this ICT staff for extending their support to the conducting this symposium. I welcome various departments, research scholars, students, and ICT media friends, and my colleagues, Dr. R.V. Gansetti, Associate Professor, and Dr. Suresh KP, organizing, and their sincere efforts in organizing this symposium. I welcome Dr. Matpati, technical assistant, for his technical support in organizing this symposium. I welcome our research scholars, Parveen, Shabana, and Haji, and others for their active involvement. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all for the inaugural function of this symposium. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I take this privilege to introduce our resource person and chief guest, Professor P.S. Kamble, sir. Sir is having renowned experience in the field of economics. Sir has completed many PhDs and young fields. Sir has published his articles in international and national journals. Sir has visited foreign. And I also introduce our another one resource person, Professor K.C. Thavre, sir, Professor Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune, Maharashtra. Sir is also having a very rich experience in the field of politics and also economics. This is a brief introduction of our resource persons. Now I request Dr. Suresha KP, sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijaypur, to deliver introductory speech about the symposium. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to everyone. Respected dignitaries are present in the virtual mode and on behalf of Karnataka State Akka Mahadevi Women's University Vijaypura Department of Economics, I have the proud privilege to welcome you all for one day virtual national symposium on new format 2020 Understanding the Implication and Challenges. I feel glad to brief about Symposium. We have received overwhelming responses from different universities, colleges, professors, faculty, and research scholars, as well as students from various disciplines across the country and state. We have received more than 789 participants registered in online mode in this time. Dear friends and respected dignitaries, Indian Agriculture Act 2020 referred to the agriculture bills passed by the Lok Sabha on 17 September 2020 and by the Rajya Sabha on 20 September 2020. The bills collectively seek to provide the farmers with multiple marketing channels and provide a legal framework for farmers to enter in free or arranged contract among other things. The President of India Ramnath Kovind gave his assent for three bills on 27 September 2020. The Standing Committee on COVID gave in this assent for three bills 27 September 2020. So the Standing Committee on Agriculture 18 and 19, however, notes that several reforms are suggested in the model acts are not been implemented by the states. In particular, the committee found that the laws of regulated Indian agricultural markets so, relevant on agriculture produce market committees, APMC are not being implemented fairly and honestly or serving their purpose. Centralization was through to reducing competition and accordingly participation with unused commissions, market fees and monopoly association damaging in agriculture sector. A committee is consisting of seven chief ministers was set up in July 2019 to discuss implementation. The committee has had to submit its report. The center promulgated three audience in the first week of June 2020. There are three important issues are rises in new format. The first one, the Farmer Produce Trade Commerce Promotions and Felicitation Act 2020. The expand the scope of trade areas farmers produce from selected areas, any place of production, collections, and aggregations. Follows the electronic trading and e-commerce scheduled farmer to produce. Prohibits of state government from laying on market fees, cess or levy on farmers and traders. Electronic trading platform for the trade farmers produce the conducted an outside trade area. The second one, Farmers Empowerment and Protections Agreement Act, Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020 provide the legal framework for farmers to enter into the free arranged contract with buyers, including mentions of pricing and dispute the resolution mechanism. The third one is Essential Commodity Act 2020 the remove the foods of such as cereals, pulse, potato, onions, edible oil seeds, and oils from the list of essential commodities. Remove the stock holding limits on such items except extraordinary circumstances. So the response of the farmers and others have called bills corporate friendly and anti-farmer. The bill have faced strong protest mainly from Punjab farmers and non-opposition parties. Then another one important, the what is the major important issues? What farmers are fears? The farmers as union in Punjab, Haryana, has said the recent laws announced center will decimal minimum support prices system. Then farmer demands. What are the farmer issues are struggle still? Then what is the important focus on farmer issues? Then how to minimum support price supporting to the farmers. Then what is the government says? Then what is the impact on and in the present scenario? So the last one, what is the essential impact on essential commodities amendments? So then what are the provisions should be measures by the government and as well as committee? The provisions under the farms bill explained to create the ecosystem where the farmers are traders enjoy the freedom to sell the purchase for to produce outside the register mandis under the states of APMC. Then what the promote barriers free intrastate, state to state, or farmers and produce. So reducing the marketing, transportations, or cost of and help farmers to getting the better prices. States will lose the revenue says they won't able to collect the mandi fees if farmers sell their produce outside register APMC market. What happens in the commission agent? In states, entire foreign trade moved to the mandis. This is the issues will be arises in the present scenario. It may eventually the MSP, the minimum price support price based on procurement system is existing. Electronic trading like ENAM, that is also physical mandi structures also existing in this issue. Dear friends, so this is the major issues are outlined by the well-known resource person, Professor P.S. Kamble sir and Professor K.C. Tavre sir. So both are being with us. We discussed that it is a good platform to discuss enthusing of in the field of the new agriculture farm act, understanding the implication and challenges. Thank you for given opportunity to share the brief introduction about the symposium. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor Namdeva Yam Gowda, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Karnataka State Akkamahadevi Women's University, Vijaypur for inaugural speech.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗಿನ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಅಕ್ಕಮಹಾದೇವಿ ಮಹಿಳಾ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗದಿಂದ ಆಯೋಜಿಸಿದಂಥ ಒಂದು ದಿನದ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಜ್ವಲಂತ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ತೆರೆದಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಕೃಷಿ ಕಾರ್ಮಿಕರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಕೃಷಿ ಉತ್ಪನ್ನಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇದ್ದಂಥ ಈಗಿನ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಪ್ರಾಸಂಗಿಕ. ಇಂತಹ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದಂಥ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜಿಸಿದಂಥ ವಿಭಾಗದ ಮುಖ್ಯಸ್ಥರಾದ DM ಮದ್ರಿಯವರು, RV ಗಂಗಸಟ್ಟಿಯವರು ಹಾಗೂ ಸುರೇಶ್ KP, ಇವರು 3 ಜನ ಸೇರಿ ಇಂಥ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಿಂಗ್ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜಿಸಿರುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ PS ಕಾಂಬ್ಳೆ, ಶಿವಾಜಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಕೊಲ್ಲಾಪುರ, ಇವರು ಸಹ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ KC ತಾವ್ರೆ ಸರ್, ಅವರು ಈಗಿನ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೃಷಿ ಮಸೂದೆಗಳನ್ನು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ನಾವು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕೆಂಬ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಉದ್ದೇಶದಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಸಹ ನಾನು ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಎವ್ರಿವನ್. India's new Farm Act 2020, understanding implication and challenges. The Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act covers 2 aspects. One, a provision for guaranteed price, and another one, input and technical services to farmers by registered individual, firm, company, cooperative society, etc. Under a mutually agreement between the farmer and sponsor prior to production, the act intends to insulate interested farmers, especially small farmers, against the market and price risk, so they can go for the cultivation of high value crops without worrying about the market and low prices in the harvest season. If a farmer is interested, they can also get technical services and inputs from the sponsor. There is nothing in the Act beyond these two provisions. The Act does not require any farmer go to for this agreement. The decision is left entirely on the farmer. The act prohibited the farming agreement to include the transfer, sale, lease, mortgage of the land or premises of the farmer. All about this act related to corporate farming, which is totally different and not allowed in any state of India. The act is inclined towards farmers. No party is bound to continue with the agreement beyond the agreed period. The act will promote diversification, quality production for premium price, export and direct sale of produce with desired attributes to interested consumers. It will also bring new capital and knowledge into agriculture and pay private they way farmers participation. The union government entered two new farms laws for agriculture and modified the Essential Commodities Act 1951 in September 2020. The new act have been widely acclaimed as a historic path breaking and a 1991 moment for the agriculture. However, some stakeholders and experts have expressed the service narrative is being created based on the ideological grounds to build opinion and pressure against the new laws and ignoring the intent, content, and implication of the new policy reforms. Some people have also experienced the concern about the likely deletion of role of the small number of midman in agriculture marketing, ignoring the benefits to acts of on farmers, the farm sector, APMCs and MSP consumers and the future of agriculture and related aspects. It is also important to inform the public way the center had the bring about the acts. Is criticism from some quarters that new farm laws have been rushed in without consultation with the state and stakeholders. As mentioned earlier, the discussion on policy reforms and structural changes in agriculture start around the year 2000. It began with suggestions for changes in market regulation and removal of the various restrictions provided under the APMC Act. Some serious limitations of the APMC Act are as follows, though there is variation across states. Finally, this act intends the insulate interested farmers, especially small farmers, against the market and price risk, so they can go for the cultivation of high value crops without worrying about the market and low prices in the harvest season. If a farmer is interested, they can also get a technical service and inputs from the sponsor. There is nothing in the act beyond these two provisions. I congratulate the Department of Economics for conducting the symposium. I wish them all the success. Thank you.
If you always support the correct principle, then you will never get the wrong results. Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Last but not the least, now I request Dr. R.V. Gangshetty, sir, Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijaypur, to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, professional friends. I take this opportunity to extend sincere thanks to Professor Namdem Yam Gowda, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University Vijayapura, for presiding over the inaugural function of one-day virtual national symposium on India's new Farm Act 2020, understanding implication and challenges, organized by the Department of Economics, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University Vijayapura. I, on behalf of the Department of Economics, on behalf of Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University Vijayapura, on behalf of all the participants and my personal behalf, sincere thanks to you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to extend sincere thanks to Chief Guest and Resource Person, Professor P.S. Kamble, Professor of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, who accepted our invitation for this one-day virtual national symposium. Being very busy schedule, sir accepted our invitation to be the chief guest of inaugural function. I, on behalf of the university, behalf of the Department of Economics, and my personal behalf, I extend sincere, heartfelt thanks to you, sir. Thank you. I take this opportunity to extend sincere thanks to one more chief guest and resource person, Professor K.C. Thaure, Professor of Economics, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune, Maharashtra. It's my pride to extend sincere thanks to university authorities, Professor R. Sunandama, Registrar, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijayapura, for their encouragement and moral support to organize one-day virtual national symposium. Thank you, madam. It's my pleasure to extend sincere thanks to Dr. D.M. Madri, Professor and Chairman and Dean, and Dr. K.P. Suresha, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijayapura. Thank you, sir. I extend sincere thanks to Registrar Evaluation, Dr. P.G. Sir, and Finance Officer, Vijaya Korisetti, and all the chairmen, deans, teaching and non-teaching staff, media friends, participants from the different places, and my beloved research scholars and students of economics who sincerely put their effort for organizing one-day virtual national symposium. I thank to Parveen Kausar Yalgi, research scholar and anchor of today's symposium. Last but not least, I extend sincere thanks to all the individuals who directly or indirectly supported for the conducting one-day virtual national symposium. Thank you one and all. Parveen.
Thank you, sir. Now the first technical session will start. Once again, I introduce our resource person, Professor P.S. Kamble, sir, Professor of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Sir is teaching 31 years of teaching experience, and sir has guided L1 PhDs and 13 young fields. Sir has published his research papers, 35 international, 121 national, 45 state. Total, sir has published 201 research paper presented in conference and seminars. Sir has written 19 books and 10 edited books. Sir has visited foreign in the year 2050. Sir has visited to Japan. Congratulations, sir. And sir, he has also visited to Malaysia in the year 2016. Sir has received many awards, prizes, and rewards. Sir has completed two major research projects. First one is environmental damage caused in urban area of Maharashtra with special reference to Maharashtra, and the second one is economic evaluation of ecosystem service with reference to Panchaganga River. Congratulations, sir. This is the introduction of sir. Now the first technical session will start. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Really, it's a proud and privilege for me to deliver a lecture on the occasion of National Symposium that has been organized by Karnataka State Akka Mahadevi Women University, Vijaypur, Karnataka. At the very outset, I must thank Vice Chancellor Sir, Registrar, all authorities, and our friends and colleagues in the Department of Economics, Akka Mahadevi Women University, Professor Madri, Dr. Ganshetty, Dr. Suresh, all other authorities and dear participants. I take this opportunity to thank one and all for your participation and present on the occasion of this national webinar that has been organized by Department of Economics, Akka Mahadevi Women's University, Vijaypur. Talking about the topic of my today's lecture, I must thank also my dear friend, second resource person, that is Kailas, Professor Kailas from Gokhale Institute. Kailas, for you as well. Topic of my lecture today is agriculture reforms, those have been introduced. We name it as a Farm Acts. And what can be agriculture reforms or Farm Acts, those have been enacted, more or less its implementation is to be started as well from June. And now it has become a very important, vital, as well as burning issue from the farmers community. Other strata of the society are also there. And therefore, being an academician, I must try to place before you neutrally what are the implications of the farm reforms, Farm Acts. Those have been introduced, the implementation has been started. And what challenges those acts or agriculture reforms can pose before Indian economy, especially agriculture of India, that is of crucial importance. And in addition to that, what can be a policy forward? What policy is expected, desirable as the result of that? What are the evil consequences, or I would say challenges, those are or those will be posed before the Indian economy, how those can be tackled, how those can be overcome. In this direction, there is a need for assessing, examining, and studying agriculture reforms, Farm Acts, those have been enacted and its implementation has been started. Thus, my lecture will be India being an agriculture country, why agriculture reforms are required. Number two, what agriculture reforms are exactly there? What Farm Acts are there? Thirdly, what provisions are there in this act? And next is what implications of these agriculture reforms are there for the country like India, for the country like us. What challenges those can be there? Because of the implementation of agriculture reforms, Farm Acts, those are introduced. And lastly, a policy direction which is required, a desirable policy that can help us in these sections. I will try to stick up with my presentation. Can I share my presentation? Is it visible? Is it visible? Presentation is visible? Suresh? Dr. Ganshakti, is it visible? Presentation is visible or not? Kailash? My presentation is visible? Professor Madri, is it visible? Hello?
Visible, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, okay. I want your response. No? Otherwise, that becomes difficult. Thus, the title of my lecture is India's Agriculture Reforms, Farm Acts 2020, Implications for India, Challenges before Indian Economy, and Policy Forward, Policy Ahead. So far as my lecture is concerned, in the first part, just I will try to introduce the topic. In the second part, what farm acts are there? There are 3 acts. The comparison or their inclusion is known as agriculture reforms, or they are called as farm reforms 2020. Then I will take a review of what provisions are there in these acts. What these acts say. What are the provisions relating to agriculture of India? Those are there in these acts that I will try to take a review of that, make a review of that. The next part is very important for me as well as all participants. What can be or what are implications of farm acts, farm reforms 2020 for India? Are they posing certain challenges? If they are imposing challenges before Indian economy, what are those? What can be challenges? And lastly, what policy is helpful for us in tackling the challenges and evil consequences those are being observed of the agriculture reforms or Farm Acts 2020. This is my plan of lecture. This is my agenda of lecture. Now, why agriculture reforms have been brought about? But before that, all of us know India is introduced as agriculture country. We introduce India as agriculture country. And the reason is simple. The reason is that a majority of population of India depends upon agriculture as a source of livelihood. Whatever the nature and extent of employment being provided by agriculture, that is the source of livelihood. That is the livelihood to the majority of people in the country like us. And all of us know India is dominated by a rural economy. And the main occupation, not of only India, but of the rural economy, not of only rural economy, but the entire economy of India is agriculture. And this requires to carry out agriculture reforms, and all of us know after 91 onwards, we are constantly, consistently talking about reforms in general. Fiscal reforms are there, industrial reforms are there, monetary reforms are there, banking reforms are there. We are continuously talking about, and in the row of that, we are now talking about agriculture reforms, also called as farm reforms, also called as Farm Acts 2020. So, what was the objective of enacting Farm Acts 2020? The major objective was to speed up economic growth. All of us know Corona pandemic has very adversely affected economic growth of India, and Indian economy was never in negative growth or GDP growth in the past. And the magnitude of negativeness or minus economic growth of India is significantly greater and higher. And the intention of the government is to speed up economic growth, to speed up growth of the economy. And in this perspective, agriculture can play a very important role. That is intention, that is understanding of the government, present government. And therefore, government intends that economic growth can be promoted, it can be enhanced, its negativeness can be overcome, can be reduced, it can be eliminated, it can be stopped then, and then only when agriculture plays a very important role. And the government is of the opinion that it is the agriculture development, it is the agriculture reforms, it is the farm reforms that plays a very important role. And it is again this backdrop, the government intended to promote economic growth through agriculture reforms, through farm reforms. That is one. All of us know India being agriculture country, unless and until agriculture development of India takes place, the development of the rural economy in particular and Indian economy in general is not possible. And it is again this backdrop, government intention is that agriculture should be developed. And it is agriculture reforms, those can help us in agriculture development. It is farm reforms, it is farm acts, those can help us in agriculture development. And therefore also these reforms, these acts have been enacted and implementation has been started. Actually, one of the very important purposes or objective of these farm reforms or agriculture reforms is a doubling of the farmers' income. You might be knowing when the budget the government of India presented 2021, the government of India declared that farmers' income will be doubled. And unless and until agriculture development takes place, agriculture development is speeded up, it's not possible for us to raise the levels of income, especially the farmers' income. And the policy makers, the government decision-making authorities are of the firm opinion that agriculture development not only speed up economic growth, but on the other hand, will significantly enhance and increase the levels of income of the farmers. And the goal, the objective of doubling of the farmers' income, that will be realized, that will be achieved. And what is required, what can be a way out, what can be a measure, what can be a means, and that way out, that policy is farm reforms or agriculture reforms. And those comprise of in all three acts. Number one is Farmers Empowerment and Protection, Agriculture Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill 2020, the Farmers Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion Protection Agreement on Price Assurance, Farm Bill 2020, and Essential Commodities Act 2020. Actually, it's an amendment over the Essential Commodities Act 1955. Thus, Farm Reforms 2020, Farm Acts 2020 comprise of, in all three acts, having intention, having objectives in all three. Number, to speed up economic growth that has been very adversely hampered by, that has been very adversely affected by corona pandemic, especially lockdown policy that we have adopted. And this can be realized by speeding up agriculture development. And that will also enable us in raising the levels of farmers' income, that is doubling of the farmers' income. That will help us in this backdrop to realize these objectives, to materialize these objectives. Farm acts have been introduced so far as farm reforms is concerned. Now, talking about the first act, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act or Bill 2020. Actually, the objective of this act was to provide a national framework on farming agreements. It clearly explains that henceforth, when the implementation of these acts will take place or it will be realized, it will be implemented, there will be farm agreements, negotiations will be there relating to agriculture and allied activities. And to provide a mechanism, to provide the framework or system of agreements in agriculture allied activities, that is one of the intentions in bringing about, in enacting this act. Supplementary to that, to protect farmers, especially the farm services which are required, agribusiness, processor, wholesalers, exporters, etc., and negotiations relating to agreements relating to farm services and the sale of produce as well. Whatever services which are required so as to undertake agriculture production, agricultural allied activities production, and whatever the production that takes place, that to be sold. And for that reason, whatever negotiations which are required with the suppliers, with the parties, that will be ensured, that will be enabled, that will be possible in the framework of this act. And that is one of the intentions, that is purposes so far as the farmers' empowerment and protection, agreement on price, assurance, and farm services bill that is there. Now, what provisions are there? In chapter 2, some provisions that we get, and especially those are relating to farming agreement. Already I have mentioned that agreement between the farmers and the suppliers of the services. Agreement between the purchasers of the commodities and commodities, those have been produced by the farmers, and allied activities that will take place. And the agreement of these with the farmers, of the farmers with these parties, those provisions have been made in chapter 2 of this act. Number 1, what will be the period of agreement? Agreement between farmer and the parties, supplier of services, purchaser of the commodities, what its period will be. And its period will be minimum 6 months, 1 season, farm season, agriculture season, and maximum 5 years. But at the same time, the period of season will be taken into account, that will be considered, number 1. Supplementary to that, the quality of the farm produce, the grading of the farm produce, the standard for the quality of the farm produce, that will be taken into account. All agricultural commodities, their quality, their grading, their standardness, that will be carried out, that will be taken into account, that is there. Third is very important, pricing. Pricing of the agricultural commodities, pricing of the produce produced by the farmers. And this act talks about pricing of the agricultural produce. Pricing should be there. Price to the agriculture and allied activities commodities should be there, and that provision, that mechanism is there so far as the Act 1 is concerned. Then sale and purchase of farming produce. Both purchase of the farm produce that has been produced by the farmers, and while undertaking production of agriculture produce or commodities, it requires number of services and inputs, and those are being supplied by the agencies, by the parties, and that agreement will take place both on the purchase of the inputs and services as well as sale of the commodities and services produced by agriculture and allied activities. Supplementary to that, some exemptions have been incorporated relating to farm produce that will be undertaken, especially some of the, take example, that ration system is there, public distribution system is there. In the context of that, some exceptions have been incorporated, that is also there, which is necessary to be taken into account. Now the agreements will take place between sponsor and the farmers. And this act provides that there will not be any right of the sponsor over the land, over the agriculture land. No right is provided that has been enabled or facilitated under this act. And at the same time, the efforts will be made to make agreements between the farmers and insurance and credit supply as well, because credit loans and advances are required. And for the security of the agriculture produce, the cover of the insurance is also required. And that linkage between the insurance cover and credit facilities provided between the sponsors, between the farmers, that will take place. Supplementary to that, there can be provision of, there is possibility of farming agreements between other parties also. There can be other parties, sub-parties. Between them, farm agreements will take place, negotiations will take place, that is there. Then if there is a misunderstanding, then termination of this agreement will take place. It is not that permanent. It is not that it should be continued. If disputes take place, or if unsatisfactory things happen between the sponsors and between the farmers, this agreement can be terminated, and that facility is there. And especially there will be authority, registration authority, under which the number of activities relating to negotiation, relating to agreements between the farmers and the sponsors and the supplier of the inputs and services, that will take place, that is there. If the circumstances or the situation of dispute that arises between the farmers and the sponsors, there is a system or mechanism of dispute settlement. And this dispute settlement comprising of conciliation board, and this will try to settle the dispute between the farmer and the sponsor, and the agencies which are there. Those are part and parcel of the negotiations. They play very important role in supplying the inputs and services which are required. At the same time, purchase of the commodities and services, those have been produced by the farmer and allied activities that is there. Suppose there is a dues of loans and advances on the farmers, then no action will be taken to recovery of dues within the period of negotiations or agreements. Those have been taken place between the sponsors and the farmers. That provision is also there. Now, in this act, some miscellaneous provisions are also there. The entire authority of central government will be there. That is, central government will be the supreme authority with regard to the negotiations and agreements under this act. Then authorities will be as public servants. They have to work as public servants. Supplementary to that, protection of the interest are required in good faith. And there will be facility of court so as to settle the dispute. That facility is also there. And if there are some acts which are overriding this act, then the previous act will be abolished. It will be stopped. It will be replaced by the provisions in this act, that is overriding effect that is there. Supplementary to that, stock exchanges, corporations, they can also participate. And the central authority is the power in making rules. State governments can also make, but central government will be the supreme authority that is there. And it is expected that all difficulties to be removed by the government of India, central government, those provisions are there so far as Act number 1 is concerned. In the second act, it is found that the Farmers Produce and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020. The major intention was to create ecosystem, to create a system in which farmers and traders can be free, can be autonomous to sell and purchase commodities and services which are required. And at that time, the prices will be fair, prices will be remunerative, and there can be alternative trading channels. It is not a single trading channel that will be there. There can be number of trading channels. Those will be enabled, those will be facilitated. And supplementary to that, within the area of APMC, outside the area of that premises of the market, also the commodities can be sold. That is the intention. And one more intention is that the purchase and sale of the commodities and services that will take place, especially sale of the agricultural produce on electronic basis, e-marketing will be there. But that will be given priority, that will be given more importance, that is there. In this act, some very important provisions are there. In the chapter 2, promotion and facilitation of trade and commerce of agricultural produce, there is freedom for trade and commerce in trade area and outside the trade area. Trade and commerce of scheduled farmers produce, that will be there. Supplementary to that, electronic trading facility and transaction platform will be made available, and markets will be free under the State APMC Act. That is, it is not in the APMC only sale of the commodities is required. Outside the APMCs can be sold, and price information and the information of the market that will be provided to the concerned parties, both the farmers as well as the sponsor. That provision is there. And in this trade and sales and marketing, if dispute takes place, if some non-agreements take place, then dispute resolution settlement authority is there, and that can play a very important role in the settle of the disputes between the farmers and the sponsors, between the farmers and the negotiating authorities that is there. And if necessary, the negotiation will be cancelled, it will be suspended, and especially attempts will be made to carry out through electronic trading, electronic transactions, that will be given importance that is there. And if necessary, if required, that transaction can be cancelled. It can be cancelled. It is not, it should be completed. That can be cancelled out, and that provision is there. And within the completion of this transaction, if something happens negative, there is possibility of penalty, and that penalty is significantly higher. The provision of penalty is there if anybody disobeys the rules and provisions in the Act. Provision of the penalty is there, and penalty is burdensome, it is excessive. That provision is also there. In addition to that, central government will be powerful in instruction, directions, and other decision making. Protection should be given in good faith, and overriding takes place. Central government or this act will be superior, it will be supreme than other acts. Supplementary to that, civil court will be there. Then certain transactions, if not necessary, can be cancelled, and central government will be powerful. Rules will be there within the framework of that, the transactions to be carried out, and power to remove difficulties. If difficulty challenges are there, those can be removed, those can be removed, and all other provisions those can be cancelled out in the framework of the provisions those have been made in this act. That is there. Then third act is the Essential Commodities Act 2020. Actually, it's an amendment to the Essential Commodities Act 1955. And under this act, it is provided by that the supply of foodstuffs, including cereals, pulses, potato, onions, edible oils, by the central government, that will be removed. That will be removed. That these commodities will be removed or are removed from the essential commodities list. And supplementary to that, if there are certain natural calamities or a significant or rapid rise in prices of the agriculture commodities takes place, then there can be restrictions on the prices and commodities, stock of the commodities, reserves of the commodities. That provision is there. And that provision is there that stock limit can be imposed if a rise in price is rapid and significantly higher. If the retail price of horticulture produce increases 100%, the stock will be restricted, it will be controlled. And if retail prices of non-perishable agricultural commodities that takes place at 50% rate, 50%, then the stocks will be restricted, stocks will be controlled, and the efforts will be made such to control the rising prices of those commodities. That provision is there. Thus, this will try to free commodities, those are enlisted under the Essential Commodities Act 1955. But at the same time, public distribution system and targeted public distribution system are the exceptions to this amendment to the Essential Commodities Act 2020. That is also there. Now, moving towards what can be implications for India. I have tried to place before what provisions are there, important provisions that I have tried to discuss before you. I have tried to place before you. Now, these agriculture reforms, Farm Acts 2020, what implications they provide for India when their implementation has been started. But while discussing about the implications of these Farm Acts, agriculture reforms 2020, it is necessary to take into account the background of Indian economy and background of Indian agriculture. And within the framework of that, it is of crucial importance to discuss and elaborate and to reveal what implications can be there for India when the implementation of these acts already has been started. Number one is the data is for the 2018-19. The sectoral distribution of GDP, economic growth of India, reveals that agriculture had a share of 16% in the total GDP. Industry sector was contributing 30% to the total of GDP of India, and service sector was contributing 54% share in the total GDP of India. Thus, agriculture was contributing 16% share in the total GDP of India. Thus, this reveals that service sector was dominant, which was followed by industry, and agriculture is in the third rank so far as their contribution is concerned. On the one hand, this scenario is there, but on the other hand, 60% people are staying in rural area. 60% share of population, India's population, is rural population. It is staying in the rural areas, and their source of livelihood is agriculture. Suppose we are 136 crore. Out of that, 60% are staying in the rural areas only. 700 million people depending upon agriculture directly or indirectly for their survival. Their survival directly or indirectly is affected by, influenced by agriculture. Of the 700 million people depending upon agriculture directly, indirectly as a source of livelihood. Then 44% share in labor force of agriculture is there. Agriculture labor share in total labor force is 44%. And of the total agriculture labors, 45% are productive. 55% of the total labor force in India is agriculture labor. The magnitude or the share or proportion of agriculture labor to the total labor in India, Indian labor, is 54%. And all of us know one of the major intentions in bringing about agriculture reforms, farm reforms, is to speed up economic growth that has been very severely, very badly affected by Corona pandemic. But unfortunately, all other productive sectors and subsectors, that is industry, manufacturing and service sector, they have shown a very high level negative growth, and only agriculture has shown a positive growth. When we take into account academic year, financial year 2021, in the first quarter of financial year 2021, just agriculture was positive, and all other productive sectors, subsectors, they have registered their negative growth, and that negative growth was significantly higher. It was significantly greater. That is, only agriculture is contributing, only agriculture sector is positively contributing in the pandemic era, and all others are showing a negative growth that is there. If this background is taken into account, then it is very easier and simpler to reveal and draw policy implications for India, how it will imply for India. Number one is that these farm reforms, farm acts, are trying for contract farming. Agreements, negotiations is contract. It is, the intention is contract farming. To bring about contract farming is the major intention, is the major purpose, is the major objective in bringing about farm reforms or agriculture reforms. And contract farming is not new for India. Previously also it was there. To some extent now also it is in present. But contract farming in large scale. Contract farming in large scale because we have small and marginal farmers. About 80%, 75% are small and marginal farmers, and the size of land is not economically viable. And therefore, these acts, this government intends that when contract farming will be brought about, it will enlarge economic size of land holding, and that will be enabled, that will be facilitated only by contract farming. But the history of contract farming in India tells us that it has not succeeded. One of the studies was carried out in my university on contract farming. When the topic was chosen, contract farming was in existence. It was relating to agricultural allied activities. And when the study was about to complete, that contract farming was ended. That's a realistic story that I have observed. So contract farming is a failed practice in India. But under these reforms, reintroduction of contract farming is intended, it is implied so far as Indian economy is concerned. Second is that it tries to bring about corporate farming. All of us know industry sector, service sector is corporate sector in India. And in agriculture, it was excluded. In agriculture sector, corporate was not there. Corporate sector is not there. And now it wanted to bring about, so far as this reforms is concerned, or rigorous implementation, honest implementation of these acts will result in corporate farming. On the one hand, contract farming. On the other hand, corporate farming. And all of us know what is the scenario of corporate sector in industry and allied activities. All of us know in the richest families from India in the world, more than 20 families are enlisted. Of that, all are corporate bodies, are corporate owners. And this has very concentrated heavily wealth and income in the hands of corporators or corporate owners. And they are billionaires now. Indians are also in the richest section of the society. In the list of the world being published by number of agencies are there. And they declare list of richest people in the world. And in the list of that, we call it as a billionaires list. In the list of billionaires, all are from corporate sector. That sector is in industry and service sector. And this has concentrated income, wealth, and consumption expenditure. You might be knowing Thomas Piketty studied economic inequalities in India. Oxfam report has studied economic inequalities in India. Number of researchers have studied economic inequalities in India. After 91 onwards, economic inequalities has been increasing very severely, very badly, and very rapidly. Just I will cite one data. According to Oxfam report, 1% families have purchased 73% share of income and wealth. 1% households have purchased 73% share of income and wealth in India. That inequality is there, and it is continuously rising. It is rising continuously after 91 onwards. And we are striving for, we are intending for corporate farming, which will concentrate wealth and income, which is excluded, that is in agriculture and allied activities, that will take place. More importantly, capitalization of agriculture will take place. Investing capital in agriculture is different, and capitalization of agriculture is different. This capital will be provided by the corporators, corporate sector. And when it will invest, it will be for just profit motive. Whether exploitation takes place, whether common people, whether poor people, whether consumer, it will not be taken into account. Only intention is profit maximization. Investing capital in agriculture is different phenomenon, and capitalization of agriculture is different phenomenon. And here, capitalization of agriculture will take place. What is required in India is industrialization. Industrial development is required. Development of the industry sector is required. And economic history of the world tells us that those countries which have shifted from agriculture to industry, which have developed industry sector, which have succeeded in developing industry sector, those have been emerged out as industrially developed countries and economically supreme countries. Here it is necessary industrialization. Here it is required industrial development rapidly, significantly, but we are striving for capitalization of agriculture, and that is not expected and desirable for the country like us, for the society like us, and that will happen, or it will proceed further, it will continue. when we are going to implement these provisions in these acts and these acts that is there. Now, because of these acts, the existence of small marginal farmers and landless labor will not be there. It will be capitalization of agriculture. Modern farm implements advanced technology, no need for agriculture labor. Small marginal farmers will be destroyed. No, they will not exist. They will not persist. Their existence will not be there. Number of reasons because of that can happen. And consequently, the existence of small and marginal farmers and landless laborers, that will be destroyed. That will be exhausted. That will be finished. And this can happen because of the Farm Acts. Now, actually, assured prices are required. But this act tells us that prices of the agriculture produce will be determined between the negotiations between the farmers and the sponsors. They have to decide the prices of the commodities. And there will not be any agency, there will not be any interference of the government so far as determining prices of the agriculture commodities in the context of which the transaction of the negotiation is going to take place. The parties on the one hand, farmer, on the other hand, sponsor negotiations will take place and they will decide price. Actually, farmers require fair price. Farmers require affordable price because the agriculture is in loss, and it is in loss because the price of the product is less than the cost which he requires to incur, which the farmer requires to incur. And in these provisions, in these reforms, there is no reference of any minimum support price. Minimum support price gives guideline, gives a type of assurity of the prices. At least that level of prices the farmers will get. But when the negotiations will take place, farmers are poor and corporate sector is richest. Collective bargaining or the retaining capacity of the farmers is not there. And consequently, the negotiation relating to the price or determination of the price, as per the negotiation between the farmer and sponsor that will take place, it will be in favor of the corporators and not in favor of the farmers. And there is no any reference of the minimum support prices. That will be the guideline, that should be the guideline while making negotiation, while determining the prices of the commodities, agriculture commodities, that is not there. So, assured prices of agriculture produce, that possibility is not there. And when negotiation takes place, all of us know survival of the fittest. Corporate sector will be the dominant, and retaining capacity, waiting capacity of the farmers is not there. And that negotiation will be in favor of the corporate sector and not in favor of the farmers. That is there. Even there is provision of APMC's existence will be there. But when the purchasers of sponsors, those will not be there in the APMCs. They will be in the open market only. Today or tomorrow, APMCs will be collapsed. No existence of APMCs will be there. Yes, there are weaknesses. Yes, there are deficiencies in the working of APMCs. It is there. But that doesn't mean they should be exhausted. Those should be abolished. That is not there. But when these reforms will be implemented, today or tomorrow, it will take certain time. APMCs will be lost. They cannot exist. That is there. And consequently, corporate sector, APMCs is an indicator of corporate sector or cooperative marketing. And this existence of the cooperative marketing in agriculture marketing, that will be ended, that will be exhausted. And thus the loss of the APMCs, collapse of the APMCs means the end of the cooperative sector in marketing of agriculture produce, that will be there. Then what will happen when this will be a corporate farming, when this will be a contract farming, whatever the credit supply, whatever the loans and advances, the banks and financial institutions are going to extend, that will go to the rich strata of the society. Already they are richest. And whatever loans and advances they take will from the nationalized banks or banks and financial institutions. that will go to the rich strata of the society and not to the poor, not to the poor farmer. And this reverse flow will take place of the credit supply, banks and loans and advances by the banks and financial institutions to the richest strata of the society and not to the deprived communities, not to the poor farmers. That will take place, and that is the implication of this act. Now, food security will be in danger. Food Security Act has been enacted in India, and everybody has a right to get food. And it is the duty and responsibility of the government to provide for that. And public distribution system is working for that. But the working of the public distribution system and the intention of the objective of food security, that has been deviated. That has been deviated. But the implementation of these reforms further deviate food security and the intention for which food security is required. But all of us know at global level and world level, Millennium Development Goals are being implemented, Sustainable Development Goals are being implemented, and food security, 0% poverty is must, it is needed. So as to realize and materialize Sustainable Development Goals, and because of the farm reforms, those are intended, food security will be lost because open sale of the agricultural produce that will take place. Even though some exceptions are there to the public distribution system, that will not serve the purpose. But on the other hand, at this moment also, there is not much difference between the prices of food grains or agricultural commodities distributed through the public distribution system and open market. A little bit difference is there, and that difference will be ended, it will be exhausted, and public distribution system, now it is in existence, it will totally collapse and food security will be destroyed. And it is of crucial importance in the country like us, because in crores of number, people are poor in India, and their want for food, their food security is of crucial importance. This act will put in danger this food security because of the provisions are against the food security and the sales of the agriculture produce that is there. Now, actually, agriculture should benefit to the deprived society or deprived section of the society, poor farmers, laborers, socially deprived communities. But because of the reforms, what will happen? Benefits of agriculture development go to the richest section of the society, corporate sector, contractors, that will switch reversely, that will transfer reversely from poor, from the farmer, from the worker to the richest, and that's a negative flow. That's an adverse flow that will take place. It is because of the implementation of these acts. Now, the provisions in these acts, or we can say agriculture reforms. We can nomenclate as Farm Reforms 2020. That is an indicator of withdrawing away of the government from the responsibility, from the interference in agriculture, allied activities and their development. Government wants to withdraw. Government is not intended to invest in agriculture and primary sector. When it will be corporate sector will be there, contract farming will be there, then there is no need for, there is not necessity of intervention and interference of the government in agriculture and allied activities. And consequently, there will be withdrawing of the government. Government is not required. Government investment is not required. Government policy, agriculture policy will not be required. And the contract sector, the corporate sector, that will take due care of their development. Agriculture, farmers, small farmers, agriculture laborers, those will be adversely affected. Those will be deviated from the benefits, and their benefits of the agriculture development they have to derive, that will be hampered, that will be adversely affected. No investment by the government in agriculture and allied activities will take place. And more importantly, whatever development of agriculture take place, whatever profit will be earned, that will go to corporate houses and not to the farmers. Farmers will not get profits. Corporate houses, contractors, sponsors, they will get profit, and agriculture will be in profit for the contractors. for the corporate houses and not for the farmers, not for the laborers that will be there. These are the very important implications of Farm Reforms, Farm Acts 2020. We can call them as Agriculture Reforms 2020. Now, when these reforms are taken into account, those are posing number of challenges before India. That will result in number of challenges the Indian economy will face. Indian economy has to face so far as implementation of Farm Reforms, Farm Acts, Agriculture Reforms 2020 is concerned. Number one is that possibility of food inflation is it is more, because corporate sector will produce and sell commodities for profit making and not for a social service, not for meeting social security need of the people of society. Profit earning will be there. And consequently, the prices of agriculture commodities will rise. Food inflation, now also it is increasing because of this corona pandemic, and some restrictions have been imposed on the economic activities and agriculture sector and other allied activities. It is therefore prices of agriculture commodities, especially prices of food commodities, these prices will rise, and consequently food inflation is possible. Food inflation will take place, number one. Number two is that India is known as agriculture country because agriculture is the major source of livelihood and employment to Indian people. 60% population is staying in rural areas, and it is depending upon the employment that is generated in agriculture for their survival. It can be a point of topic of research, whether that level of or that amount of that quantum of people are required, population is required in agriculture. That can be a debatable issue. That can be issue of research. But the ground reality is that 60% population staying in rural areas, depending upon agriculture as a source of livelihood. When the corporate sector will be there, when contractual farming will be there, then employment will not be generated. Modern technology, modern machinery, harvesting, binder, etc., modern technology that will be brought about, and consequently employment generation will fail. A little bit employment will be there. So that will increase the problem of unemployment. All of us know in the pandemic, level of unemployment has been increased very significantly. It was 23%, and now also the recent data tells us that in between, after the unlocking of the Indian economy, a little bit employment generation was taking place. But in the month of December, again, employment generation has declined and rate of unemployment has increased. And when contract of farming will be there, corporate farming will be there, it will be just to depend upon. It will apply modern technology, modern machinery, labor saving technology, and consequently unemployment will be a severe issue. It will be intensive issue. The issue of the higher gravity in rural area in particular, and Indian economy as a whole in general, because 60% population is staying in the rural areas only, depending upon agriculture as the source of livelihood, and that will happen. It is because of the farm reforms, agriculture reform. Then consequently agriculture labor will not survive. It will vanish the identity of agriculture labor. No need for agriculture labor will be there. When agriculture is for profit, when agriculture is with the help of modern technology, modern machinery, modern tools and equipments, no agriculture labor is required. A little bit labor will be required. So it will vanish the identity of agriculture labor, and their survival will be a problem. Because our development policy is an urban area centric development policy. The development of industries has been taken place in the urban areas, in the cities and metropolitan cities in India, like Bangalore is there, Mumbai is there, Delhi is there. It is concentrated in cities and metropolitan cities and not in rural areas. And when labor saving technology will be applied, agriculture labor survival will be a problem. Consequent to that, in rural areas, agriculture laborers, women laborers are there. socially deprived communities are there. Those are depending, those are staying in rural areas and depending upon agricultural activities as the source of livelihood. Their existence, their survival will be very difficult. Poverty will increase. Already crores of people have been put into the poverty trap in the corona pandemic lockdown policy. Further, this will intensify. It is because of no employment, no income, and no income, there will be poverty and survival will be problem. On the contrary, further inequality will increase. Already, inequality is increasing very rapidly and significantly. Wealth, income, consumption is concentrating in the hands of a few corporate sector owners, few richest section of the society. And as the result of it will intensify further. At this moment, 1% families are having 73% share of income and wealth in their hands. This will further intensify, and when inequalities will income, it has a number of socio-economic political consequences. More prominently, survival of the people will be very difficult. It will be rather impossible, and that poses a challenge before the Indian economy. As the result of implementation of these reforms, those are taking place or those are intended to take place. This will hamper rural development. My friend is going to speak in detail how it will hamper rural development. But my opinion is that when agriculture will be hampered, because it will be concentrated in the hands of the people staying in urban areas, corporate houses, and no participation of the farmers and labor will be there. Rural, whatever income and surpluses they will generate, those will be used for urban development and not for the rural areas. And consequently, further intensify the rural development. Already there is a difference between the rural development and urban development. Even in the Constitution of India, both the terms India and Bharat have been used. But in reality, India shows a developed area, that is urban area. And Bharat indicates rural area that is less developed, and that disparity will be further intensified. Its gravity will increase. It is because of implementation of these reforms and the end or outcome or results of implementation of these reforms. Supplementary to that, the gap of development between rural and urban area that will increase significantly. And the globe as a whole, India also striving for sustainable development goals. And the sustainable development goals are zero poverty, no unemployment, education development, health development that will hamper. When inequality is there and the government is withering away, the end result will be, this will very adversely affect the number of goals of sustainable development are there, and those will be prohibited, those will be restricted, those will be adversely affected. It is because of the farm reforms or the implementation of the Farm Act that is there. Now, what can be the policy ahead? In the policy ahead, instead of contract farming, instead of corporate farming, we can go for cooperative farming and collective farming. Yes, weaknesses can be there, but those can be removed. And that will be in favor of society, that will be in favor of farmers and laborers, rural community. So we can go for cooperative farming, collective farming. Weaknesses are there, can be there. Those can be removed, those can be eliminated, that is there. We can also try for group farming, group of the farmers, and they can try for better agriculture development that can help us. Now, the major problem of Indian agriculture is irrigation. We have 40% of the area that is irrigated, and all other areas unirrigated. We call it as India is a gamble in monsoons. And unless and until that required irrigation facilities are required, we are not in a position to realize and materialize agriculture development which is desirable and which is required. So instead of going for contract farming, instead of going for corporate farming, we should go for development of the irrigation facilities. The areas, number of areas are drought prone areas in which agriculture is dry land farming is there. And there is urgent need of at least minimum water supply, minimum irrigation facilities. In that direction, the efforts are required. And that can help us in the agriculture development that is there. Then credit supply to small and marginal farmers. Their security is taken into account. Their collateral is taken into account. And on the basis of that, banks and financial institutions try to extend loans and advances. And they are declared as not eligible or ineligible. And consequently, they are not in a position to get loans and advances which are required at the time of their necessity and requirement. It is therefore what is required, give priority in extending loans and advances to small and marginal farmers, because their share in the total number of farmers in India is about 70 to 75%. And their need for loans and advances can play a very important role, crucial role in the agriculture development, rural development, development of allied activities, and overall development of the economy as a whole. So loans and advances to agriculture, small and marginal farmers is of crucial importance that is there. Then agriculture should be given a status of industry. And we should try for industrial development in the rural and semi-urban areas. When industrial status is given to agriculture, efforts will be made to speed up the development of industry. A number of thinkers and policymakers have suggested agriculture should be given a status of industry, and necessary inputs, necessary facilities, necessary finance, what is required, that should be provided. As the result of that, agriculture development will take place. In addition to that, industrial development should take place in the rural and semi-urban areas. As the result of that, the gap of development that can be minimized, that can be reduced, and more importantly, that can help us in a rural development, agriculture development, allied activities development, and therefore give a status of industry to agriculture, and rigorous, honest, and sincere efforts for industrial development in the rural and semi-urban areas that is there. There is a need for non-agriculture employment. We call it as a disguised unemployment. Excessive people have been absorbed in agriculture because non-agriculture employment sources are not there. Non-agriculture employment generation is not there, and we can take away a major section of the population engaged in agriculture and can absorb in non-agriculture employment. As the result of that, it can help us in increasing productivity and proper utilization of the human resource that will take place in India, and therefore our efforts should be directed towards the non-agriculture employment generation than the agriculture employment generation. That can help us. Supplementary to that, when we propose a development policy for India, that should be rural and semi-urban centric development policy. It should not be urban areas, metropolitan areas centric development policy. Now what is required? It is required rural areas and semi-urban areas centric development policy, and that should be the focus of development policy which is required. Supplementary to that, in addition to agriculture, allied and processing industrial development should take place in rural areas, in semi-urban areas, and that can help us in rural development, agriculture development, and development of the overall economy or entire economy in the country like us. It is necessary to speed up Manrega. Even in the corona pandemic also, Manrega didn't succeed in providing employment opportunities to the extent required, desirable. And therefore, here it is required that Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program Act, that should be made more dynamic, and that should be used as supportive to the agriculture and allied activities. Whatever the activities that is to be carried out under Manrega, those will be helpful for agriculture development, agricultural allied activities development. In this way, there is a need for framing of the Manrega, formulation of the Manrega and its implementation. On the one hand, it will generate employment. On the other hand, it will help us in agriculture and allied activities development. Likewise, the levels of income of the people, their consumption expenditure, their demand will increase, and consequently, that will help us in revival of the economy, which has been very adversely affected, very adversely hampered because of the corona pandemic and lockdown policy that we have adopted. There is a need for increasing investment in agriculture. Agriculture investment is required, that irrigation facilities are there, inputs are there. For that reason, agriculture investment is required. We can take help of foreign investment. That will be within the framework of that will be pro-agriculture development. pro-development of the small and marginal farmers, that precaution is necessary to be taken and investment is necessary to be increased. That will help us in development of agricultural allied activities. For that reason, we can take a help of foreign investment as well. There is taking a precaution is very much necessary that no export ban will be there, especially for the agricultural commodities. When export of agriculture is banned, a rapid collapse in the prices of agriculture produce or commodities take place. Onion is there, other commodities are there. So export ban should not be there. If a rapid rise in prices is taking place and inflation is taking place, at that time we can think of that. But export ban should be abandoned. That can help us in the agriculture development and fair prices to the farmers and agriculture workers and laborers, as well as supplementary to that, the participation of the central government, state government is very necessary through budgetary operations, through making provisions in the budget. That is of crucial importance. That can help us in agriculture development, allied activities development, rural development, employment generation, and overall revival of the economy as a whole. And these are the changes which are expected, which are required in the development policy of India, so far as overcoming the effects, evil consequences, and adverse impact that has been taking place on the country like us. In this perspective, in this direction, we should look at farm reforms, agriculture reforms, farm acts, those are there. Otherwise, the collapse of agriculture, collapse of the farmer, collapse of the agriculture labor, collapse of the rural economy, and consequently Indian economy as a whole, that will take place. It will not require much time that is there. In these words that I want to place before you, the various issues and aspects and implication, challenges, and the policy desirable forward so far as Indian economy, agriculture, other activities, and rural development is concerned. Here, I should stop once again. Thank you very much to the organizers and all participants. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Over to organizing secretary. Over to organizing secretary.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Farmers doesn't just work till the sun goes down. They work till the job gets down. Thank you so much for your valuable words, sir. Now the session is open for the discussions. If anybody has having any questions and queries, then they can ask the questions and queries through the chat box. Put your questions into the chat box. And once again, I will request to the participants, if they are having any question, then please put the question into the chat box. I think there is no question, sir.
My pleasure. It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you so much, sir.
That I succeeded in reaching the information knowledge which was required to be reached to the parties. Thank you, and thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I thanks to the Dr. P.S. Kamble, sir, on the behalf of me, on the behalf of Department of Economics, on the behalf of University. I am very thankful to you, sir, and we gain a lot of knowledge from your lecture, sir. And thank you so much, sir. And I request all the participants to join for the second session on after lunch at 12:30. Sorry, 2:30.
Thank you, Professor Madri, Professor Ganshetty, Suresha. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Little bit change in the time. I request participants to join at 2 o'clock. Okay.